Well, welcome to the Botanical Medicine Study course with me, Stephanie Georgiev, your host and instructor for the online class in all things botanical medicine. If you would like to be the first on your blog to know most of what is available in terms of practice, science, and application of botanical medicine, clink, which is the combo word for click and link, clink below, and you will be directed to a form which has instructions on how to download the introductory video and the handouts. A special thanks to new subscribers and all of you who comment, like, and share these videos. It really does help to spread the word. For this week's Herb of the Week, we will be exploring an herb that is a must, and I really mean that, a must to have in every herbal medicine cabinet, especially for first aid. For me, it's a miracle herb. The herb of the week is Helichrysum, also known as Immortella, as well as everlasting. Some herbalists call it curry plant, but I've never used that term, and I'm sorry, it just doesn't fit for me. Now, Helichrysum italicum is a species of flowering plant in the Asteraceae family, and it is part of the genus of Helichrysum, which consists of an estimated 600 species of flowering plants in this family and in this genus. Now, often they go by names of everlasting, immortelle, strawflower, and Helichrysum is the name derived from ancient Greek words, helios, which is for sun, and chrysos, which is gold. And to get the specific medicinal effects we will be discussing, you need to know your Latin here. Helichrysum italicum is what you're looking for. Other common names include Italian strawflower and immortelle. Helichrysum is a self-seeding plant that grows native in dry, rocky, and sandy terrains throughout the Mediterranean. The stems are woody at the base and can reach up to 24 inches or 60 centimeters in height. The clusters of yellow flowers are produced in the summer, and they retain their color after picking, and are often used in dry flower arrangements. And I'm sure you've seen that. Commercially, the oil is used as a fixative, and it's the oil of the flowers. And it's used in perfumes and has what I consider an intense fragrance. I'm not super fond of the scent of Helichrysum, but it's used as a base note and part of a formula. And for those of you studying aromatherapy or you know anything about perfumery, there's all kinds of different notes in a formula, and a base note is the one that has kind of a woody or spicy scent, and it basically anchors the formula. That's why they call it a base note. It also has a somewhat bitter aroma, reminiscent of sage or wormwood. And its young shoots and leaves are often used in stewed Mediterranean meat, fish, or vegetable dishes. And it's used very similarly to bay leaves, meaning you put it in the recipe, you cook it, and then you take it out at the end. Helichrysum is a small perennial herb with narrow silver leaves, you can see there. Sort of silver green leaves, and the flowers are a cluster flower. That's why they're called Asteraceae, and they're ball-shaped blossoms. Now, Helichrysum has many herbal qualities to it, herbal actions. The one that I find the most useful is actually two things I find is nervine, which means it acts on the nervous system, and vulnerary, which means it's a wound healer, but it also has antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and antifungal. Now, some practitioners think that Helichrysum may be able to reduce allergic symptoms, especially those from contact dermatitis, which is a fancy word for rash due to contact with something you're allergic to. So that's something it's good for. It's also, and I would recommend doing this in a tea with the dried flowers. It's very good for colds and coughs because it has antimicrobial properties. The oil is very expensive. So if you have money to burn, okay, you can use the oil, but I would just use the tea for coughs and colds. And for wound healing, and it helps heal more quickly. Although, according to research, the mechanisms are unclear, and I would say it's magic. That's what I would say. That's not a scientific or medical term, but it's a term that I use for it. Skin infections are a common side effect of wounds not healing properly, and the antimicrobial properties of Helichrysum can help prevent infection, which helps the wound heal properly. Now, my personal use of Helichrysum is that it almost instantly heals bruises and cuts, and it's like magic. That's the term I'm going to use. And my best story is when I was in Peace Corps. And to heat my room, I had this odd gas heater where I had to twist a valve on a large canister of, propane and light a flame on it that would become what most of us would consider an outdoor heater. And I was always afraid I was going to blow up my flat. And the dang valve was very difficult to use. And trying to balance the canister, the valve, and lighting the flame all at once was a little above my pay grade and skill set. And once I was having a devil of a time opening the valve. And I just got frustrated and I twisted it really hard and it bruised a vein on my middle finger around the joint just above the knuckle. And I bruised the vein under the skin, which means it started to bleed internally, which meant my fingers started swelling up like Veruca Salt in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And so my middle finger looked like a blue sausage. It was, I think if I was on some sort of medicinal mushroom or peyote or something, I'm sure it would have been quite an amazing experience. But to watch that sober was very upsetting. And as you can imagine, healthcare in rural Albania is a bit lacking. And I did not think the nature of my problem was something that anyone could do anything about other than to cut open my finger and drain the blood, which was, considering the hygienic standards I was witnessing, I thought that was a sure way to lose my finger. And I decided not to do that. And then I remembered, oh, I have a bottle of 100% Helichrysum essential oil in my personal belongings. It was a major investment, which was well spent as I left for the Peace Corps. So I started dabbing the oil all over my swollen purple finger. And I'm not kidding you, it immediately stopped swelling, like immediately. And then it started to shrink. And the next day, my finger had no trace of the injury. There was no bruising, nothing. Now, I have this vein on my finger that I seem to squish frequently because of its location. I just always forget that it's there. It's a risk until I get this dull ache that, yes, I did it again. And I always have Helichrysum on hand. It's sold in a diluted form as a roll-on, which I now always have with me. And so I always have a 10% dilution of essential oil of Helichrysum in jojoba oil in my essential oil kit, as well as my purse and on my desk. And I rub this on bruises and they literally disappear in a few days. And I use it as a preventative when I bang something on an elbow or something. And Helichrysum is also very good for emotional issues and seems to help people sleep, reduce anxiety and grief. And what you do is you can either use the straight oil or the diluted oil, and you put it on acupuncture points that are related to the heart. And there's one on your sternum. It's in between your nipples or your breasts. right on your sternum, or you can put it on your wrist. Those are very wonderful points for the heart, and it's very good at easing sadness and grief. Now, there has been a lot of research on Helichrysum. And if you ask me, even though the plant has been studied extensively and the analysis of substances has been very thorough, I personally do not see how these substances explain the miraculous actions of the plant. You see all these wonderful names here, and there are hydrocinamic acids, hydroxybenzoic acids, flavonoids, aerosol derivatives, pyrones, and phenolic compounds. But when you're using Helichrysum, especially in trauma, I don't think you care what the substances are, only that they work. And I can tell you from personal and clinical experience, they do. Now, most of my personal and clinical experience with Helichrysum is using it as a topical, specifically with essential oil preparations, be they straight essential oil or diluted in a carrier oil. However, you can take it internally as a tea, and in Italy, you can get capsules of the powdered dry herbs. I have no experience with internal. All I can say is that it is available. The essential oil is obtained through steam distillation of the flowers, and it takes quite a lot of flowers to produce the essential oil. We're talking tons of flowers to produce like maybe a liter of oil. So it's very expensive. Now, if you find a product that has maybe 30 milliliters and costs only a few dollars, I don't think it's genuine. And it may be more of an extract, maybe a byproduct of creating an essential oil than the essential oil. The products and carrier oils are wonderful options for people like me, lowly citizens that can't afford these things. And they range anywhere from $12 to $16. The little roll-on Helichrysums, those are usually anywhere from $8 to $12. And sometimes you can buy them in packs, which I do. I buy them in like packs of 4. And like I said, I have them in my pockets of my sweaters. I have them in my purse. I'm sure you're thinking by now I'm the most clumsy person on earth, but I seem to always have a talent for banging knees, toes, elbows, and squishing veins on knuckles. So this is a must have for me. And if you can afford it, little bottles, 10 mLs, half an ounce, whatever, it's usually running anywhere from $80 to $100. And if you can afford that, I would highly recommend it. But for the rest of us who can't afford that all the time, we get wonderful results with the diluted forms. And it's very safe to use directly on the skin. But with everything, even though there's no reported side effects, blah, 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 and you put it on your skin and break out in big welts and start cursing me, I want you to get a test, like a sample or a test, and just do a little patch test on, your forearm and see if you break out in welts. If you don't, then it's a wonderful herb to have on hand, and go for it. Now, Helichrysum is a tender perennial that grows in zones 7 through 10. And it's usually propagated by rooting semi-hardwood cuttings. And do this in the summer and then let it overwinter in frost-free conditions, which are quite typical in Italy. Helichrysum prefers to grow in sunny areas with sandy soil. And so there's a link in the program notes. I have no personal experience in growing this plant, but I hope to start it in the next year. So I truly hope you become familiar with this miracle plant. It's a wonderful addition to the garden, especially as a drought-tolerant plant and to attract pollinators. The essential oil is an absolute must-have in a first aid kit, either the straight essential oil or a diluted essential oil. Make sure to bring it with you when you travel or when you hike. It's a lifesaver for sure. So this is Stephanie Georgia saying thanks for spending your valuable time with me. Link below if you would like more information for the online course. And until next time, be well.